Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Now that it's after midnight and it's Thursday morning, let me be the first to say happy August to you and happy football month. We have the NFL Hall of Fame game just around the corner. We also have high school football either next weekend or 2 weekends from now, depending on where you are. And college football starts 3 weeks from Saturday. But today, here on the channel, I want to talk some college football. Now, this is not a top 10 countdown. Let me preface this again by saying it's not a top 10 countdown, and you'll figure that out pretty quickly because I will not start at number 10. I will start at number 1. But this is ESPN's new rankings of the top 25 college football players of the 2000s. Now, honestly, I shouldn't even tell you what school these players played for or what position they played, because if you don't know who any of them are or where they played or what they played, you're not really a college football fan, because when you're on a list like the best college football players since the 2000s, then you're a big time player. So you should have to go, who is that? Where did he play for? You should know automatically, but out of the kindness of my heart, today I will tell you what position they played and where they went to school at. The best player in college football since the 2000s began, according to ESPN, defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh. Of course, he played for Nebraska. Quarterback Baker Mayfield. Now, they had him listed as an Oklahoma quarterback, which he played there, but he also played somewhere else as well. The one thing about the article that drove me crazy was probably close to half of the guys on the list played for more than one school, but they were only listed as a player that played for one school. And I don't know why they left the other school off. Now, of course, nowadays you can go to somebody and say, hey, this school caused me diarrhea, I'm transferring, and you can do it. But before the current era in college football, there was supposed to be penalties and all that kind of good stuff for transferring. Players still transferred, just not as often as they do now. Nowadays, you're going to be hard pressed to find a kid that starts for 3 or 4 years at one school. Number 3, quarterback Cam Newton, who also played for more than one school, but he was listed as Auburn quarterback. Number 4, quarterback Vince Young, Texas. Number 5, safety Ed Reed, Miami. Number 6, quarterback Tim Tebow, Florida. Number 7, running back Reggie Bush, USC. Number 8, offensive tackle Bryant McKinney, Miami. Number 9, quarterback Joe Burrow, LSU. Number 10, wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, Pittsburgh. Defensive end Terrell Suggs, Arizona State. Offensive tackle Joe Thomas, Wisconsin. Linebacker Khalil Mack, Buffalo. Defensive tackle Aaron Donald, Pittsburgh. Defensive end David Pollock, Georgia. Quarterback Deshaun Watson, Clemson. Safety Roy Williams, Oklahoma. Quarterback Kyler Murray, Oklahoma. Wide receiver Devontae Smith, Alabama. Quarterback Lamar Jackson, Louisville. Wide receiver Justin Blackman, Oklahoma State. Linebacker Will Anderson Jr., Alabama. Safety Tyrann Mathieu, LSU. Defensive end Julius Peppers, North Carolina. And running back Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. Again, that is the top 25 college football players of the 2000s according to a new rankings system from ESPN. Now, if you look over the list, you'll see that surprisingly, shockingly, Alabama is not the program that has the most players on the list. It's Oklahoma with 3, with Baker Mayfield, Roy Williams, and Kyler Murray. Now, I like and I appreciate the fact that ESPN is doing the top 25 players of the 2000s because the game of football has changed so much, and I've said that numerous times here on the channel. It's really, truly hard to compare a player from the 70s or 80s to a player from today, especially running backs and quarterbacks, because back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, most starting running backs got the ball 25 to 30 times a game. Now, a starting running back might get the ball 15 times a game on a good week. Most of them average 11 or 12 carries a game. So back in the day, guys got more than double those carries. So of course the players from back in the day are going to have more yards, more touchdowns, because they got the ball more. Does that mean they were better? We don't know. How could a player today do if he got the ball 30 times? We'll never find out. And quarterbacks, back in the day, at the collegiate level, most teams back in the 70s and 80s ran either the triple option, the T-bone, the wishbone, something to that effect. So most starting quarterbacks back in the day threw the ball about 5 times a game. Does that mean that they couldn't be successful throwing the ball 65 times a game? No, they just didn't. So, of course, the quarterbacks nowadays that are throwing the ball 65 times a game are going to have more passing yards, more touchdowns, because they're throwing the ball 65 times a game compared to 7. If you throw the ball 65 times a game compared to a guy throwing the ball 7 times a game and you don't have more touchdowns and more yards, there's a serious issue. So it's really, truly hard to say from one generation to the next, from one decade to the next, from one century to the next, how each player is doing compared to, this player from 30 years ago, because the game has changed so much. So to me, it's easier to just say from the 2000s. That way you're pretty much saying from the modern era. And I've said the same thing in basketball. I can remember growing up at 10, 11 years old, when you watched an NBA game, if a team scored 100 points, it was a good night. And back in the day, when I was 10 or 11 years old, in basketball, most teams had some kind of deal going on to where if they scored 100 points, the local McDonald's would give you a free Big Mac, or the local Taco Bell would give you a free soft shell taco. Something to that effect. The local Bojangles gives you a free Cajun biscuit, because the team just never scored 100 points. So when they did, it wasn't no big deal to give away a free biscuit or a free burger or whatever. But nowadays, there's teams that score 100 points in the middle of the third quarter. So obviously, the players nowadays are shooting the ball more, which of course means they're scoring more. Does that mean they're better than somebody from 40 years ago? No. It's just the game has changed. So I always hate when somebody says, oh, this kid's the GOAT. First of all, the GOAT is the most overused saying in the history of the world. You can't have 945 players all be the GOAT. You can only have one GOAT. But every time somebody comes along that's good, oh, he's a GOAT, he's a GOAT. No, he's not. There can only be one. If you've got more than one, you're not the greatest of all time. You can't have more than one that's the greatest of all time. But second of all, you really can't have the GOAT at a certain position when the game has changed so much. You can say somebody is the greatest in the current era, but you can't say they're the greatest of all time because the game has changed so much. Any thoughts on this list? Please feel free to let me know. I just found that it's ironic that Alabama is always the team that's known to have all the talent, but on this list from the 2000s, Oklahoma has the most players listed. Only 3, but still it's the most players listed. And I still don't know why guys like Baker Mayfield and Cam Newton that played, Joe Burrow, for example, that played for more than one school only get recognized from the last school they played at. There's no mention of Baker Mayfield playing at Texas Tech. No mention of Joe Burrow playing at Ohio State. It's like it never even happened. I just found that kind of weird. I understand that you made it big at the last school you were at. That's why you transferred there, because you didn't play enough at your previous school. But it still doesn't mean you didn't play there. But of course nowadays you couldn't do that, because now if you put a list like this out and you listed all the teams that a guy played for, you might have 7 or 8 schools written down for one player. Any thoughts on this? Again, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Do ghosts in love call each other boo? And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.